Very warm welcome to Army Scale 5858. I am Ahmed Shackle. Following are the latest news headlines which have been reported by American, European, Canadian, Asian, African, and Australian news channels and all other news agencies. So please, let's go to the news.
Tonight, breaking news as we come on the air. The emergency landing after a bird strike at Boston's Logan International Airport as millions of Americans take to the skies and the roads for the holiday weekend. And President Trump delivers the commencement address at West Point. First, 45 million Americans are on the move this Memorial Day weekend. Highways jammed and security lines are long at airports nationwide. TSA screening more than 3 million passengers on Friday, one of the busiest days ever. That number could top 18 million by Monday. And the lingering issues at Newark Airport, staffing shortages still contributing to long delays. Powerful storms, flash flooding, and damaging winds from Texas to Alabama. What it could mean for the holiday on Monday. Our weather team tracking it all. Also tonight, President Trump's message to West Point graduates saying we've liberated our troops from divisive and demeaning political trainings. A president demanding changes on DEI policies from West Point to the Pentagon. And Trump's speech following his escalating battle with Harvard and other universities. News on the economy tonight, major retailers warning of higher prices amid President Trump's trade war and his new tariff threats against the European Union and Apple. A deadly boat explosion on New York's Hudson River. One person is dead and 2 others injured. Late details just coming in. New reporting on that brazen jailbreak in New Orleans. The 10 inmates allegedly using electric hair trimmers to cut through a wall. Multiple arrests now for allegedly helping them. 5 inmates still on the run. A power outage in France disrupts the final day of the Cannes Film Festival. Authorities say it was sabotage, suspecting arson. A rude awakening in Norway. A massive cargo ship runs aground, barely missing a sleeping man's house. McDonald's is making a big change in what's no longer available on the menu. And America Strong tonight, the team paying it forward after nearly dying on the football field. From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight. Good evening. Thanks for joining us on this Saturday. I'm Whit Johnson. Breaking news as we...
President Trump took over West Point today to give his first military commencement speech since returning to office, rallying the men and women of our armed forces.
We're focusing our military on its core mission, crushing America's adversaries, killing America's enemies, and defending our great American flag like it has never been defended before. The military's job is to dominate any foe and annihilate any threat to America anywhere, anytime, to be respected. Again, you have to win. Winning is a beautiful thing. Losing, not for us, not for us, not for anybody here.
Military recruitment numbers show America is back and stronger than ever under President Trump. Each branch has surpassed their recruitment goals so far this year. And Vice President J.D. Vance joined in on the patriotic mission yesterday. He hit the U.S. Naval Academy to send off their graduates.
You will be leaders of men and women in our armed forces. Now I think of your mission in this new and very dangerous era for our country. These signified the end of a decades-long approach in foreign policy that I think was a break from the precedent set by our founding fathers. For a brief time, we were a superpower without any peer, nor did we believe any foreign nation could possibly rise to compete with the United States of America. And so our leaders traded hard power for soft power, returning to a strategy grounded in realism and protecting our core national interests.
At the same time, the Trump administration is taking aim at the deep state as Secretary of State Marco Rubio overhauls the National Security Council. Lucas Tomlinson has more from West Point. Hi, Lucas.
Well, good evening, Alicio. Air Force One might have been a little lighter flying up here after more than 100 members of the National Security Council were let go or reassigned. President Trump speaking here to West Point's 2025 graduates, and he picked up a theme he left off with in the Middle East. Attacking his predecessors, talking about nation building and saying those nation builders wrecked more nations than they built.
For at least 2 decades, political leaders from both parties have dragged our military into missions it was never meant to be. It wasn't meant to be. People would say, why are we doing it?
Tonight, weather worries this holiday weekend. Heavy wind, potential flooding, and tornadoes all in the forecast as a record number of Americans are expected to travel.
I'm meteorologist Andrew Kozak tracking all the trouble spots across the country.
Also tonight, Commander-in-Chief.
We rebuilt it like nobody has ever rebuilt it before in my first term.
President Trump takes credit for America's military might as he celebrates the next generation.
I'm Willie James, Inman, traveling with the president as he addresses West Point graduates and promises increased spending for the military.
Russia and Ukraine exchange a new round of attacks mixed with a prisoner swap. The warm welcome for Pope Leo at the Vatican. And tennis legend Novak Djokovic hits one into the record books. Plus, your summer getaway on a shoestring.
I'm Allie Bauman with why you need to book now to get the best vacation deal.
And later, bird behavior.
I'm Tim McNicholas in New York City with citizen scientists who are helping to track the peak migration of birds under threat.
This is the CBS Weekend News from New York with Jerika Duncan.
Good evening and thank you for joining us, Jerika. On this Saturday night, air raids across Ukraine. Russia launches major missile and drone strikes, the deadly barrage marking one of the war's most relentless assaults yet. Bounties sound the alarm.
There's a lot of work to be done.
The challenge is forcing the RCMP to make a plea over its budget. The BC farm at the center of an international debate, why a U.S. health official is pushing back on an ostrich call. A discovery millions of years in the making. The Canadian family who uncovered it, now written into scientific history.
Reporting tonight,
Good evening and thanks for joining us. We begin in Ukraine, where at least 13 people have been killed in a major attack by Russia. Moscow launched a large-scale drone and missile assault across Ukraine overnight. It was one of the biggest coordinated strikes on the capital, Kyiv, since the start of the conflict. The barrage threatened the second day of a major prisoner exchange between Russia and Ukraine. Hundreds more were still freed, but onlookers fear the overnight violence is a sign a resolution to the war remains far off. Candace Cole has our top story tonight.
What began as an emotional time of celebration Friday for many Ukrainian families, finally reuniting with their loved ones held as prisoners of war, quickly turned into more grief and devastation early Saturday, as Russian forces launched one of the biggest aerial attacks on the capital Kyiv since the start of the war, targeting civilian apartment buildings. This Kyiv resident says Putin doesn't want to end the war. I wish they'd agree to a ceasefire. To bomb people like this, poor children. According to Ukrainian officials, Ukraine intercepted 6 of the 14 ballistic missiles and neutralized 245 of the 250 Shahed drones used by Russia in the attack. Over a dozen people were killed in separate Russian attacks in Ukraine's southeast and north regions. The attacks happened just hours after Russia and Ukraine began their 1,000 for 1,000 prisoner swap, the largest of its kind, agreed to during underwhelming peace talks between the two sides in Turkey. This Ukraine
Tonight on PBS News Weekend, what billions of dollars of proposed Medicaid cuts could mean for the millions of Americans who are caregivers for loved ones. Then a new nationwide study finds a link between preteens' use of social media and symptoms of depression. And how some cities are taxing sodas and other sugary drinks in an effort to boost public health.
The overall effect of the tax in Philly was a 35% reduction in sales of these tax drinks. I've been working in this area for about 20 years, and I've never seen a behavioral effect that large, right?
Major funding for PBS News Weekend has been provided by
Hello, everyone. Good morning. It's 6 o'clock.
o'clock. Coming up on the show today, Nigel Farage weighs into the debate on benefits.
And Arsenal women have won the Champions League after they beat Barcelona 1-0 in Lisbon last night.
It's Sunday the 25th of May. New campaign promises from Nigel Farage pile pressure on the Prime Minister to lift the two-child benefit cap. The first train service comes under public ownership today in the government's plan to renationalise the railways. Minneapolis marks 5 years since the murder of George Floyd as the Trump administration rolls back police oversight.
And Sunderland have been promoted from the Championship after Tommy Watson scored the winning goal to beat Sheffield United in his final game for the club.
Hello, very good morning. Thanks for joining us here on The Breakfast Show. Our top story.
Africa News. The news. Dehydrated and exhausted, rescuers scrambled to attend to surviving Sudanese refugees found gasping for breath in the Libyan desert. At least 7 of their colleagues were found dead on Friday after their vehicle broke down and left them stranded for days deep in the desert, according to an ambulance service official. The car was carrying 34 Sudanese when it broke down after crossing Libya's border from Chad and onto a deserted path often used by smugglers, emergency services said. The 22 rescued, including 5 children, were transferred to southeastern Libya for medical management. This centuries-old Christian site near Alexandria was placed on UNESCO's list of heritage sites in danger in 2001 after groundwater levels threatened it. Now, Egypt has drained the water and wants the site removed from the list of those facing danger. Well, Egyptians come here, Muslims and Christians, to get the blessings of the saint and his blessed legacy, because he is the most famous Egyptian martyr on the land of Egypt, Abu Mena. At the same time, there is foreign tourism from outside Egypt. As we've heard in the briefing, the antiquities here from the 3rd, 4th and 5th centuries have become known to the whole world. This is considered a purely Egyptian chapter that gives pride to every Egyptian. The historical area centers around Saint Menas, who died in the early days of Christianity and is buried at the site. Work to restore it is ongoing.
Egyptian government managed to lower the level of the water table and also to maintain the restoration and the archaeological work, and we are happy that the Supreme Council of Tickets and all the stakeholders, as well as the church, they are all helping, they are all cooperating in order to make this site a unique site and to return it back, hopefully next year, to the normal World Heritage List and to be out of the dangerous list.
The area once hosted a church, baptistry, basilicas, public buildings, streets, houses, and workshops. Banda's hat-trick was also the first in the history of her Orlando Pride Club. She scored all 3 goals in the first 38 minutes of the match. The hat-trick is also the first by an African player in the National Women's Soccer League. Banda scored her first goal at America First Shield in Sandy, Utah in the 6th minute with a close-range finish from Ali White's pass. After Utah's Bracken Mozingo tied the game in the 14th minute, Banda put the Pride back in front 2-1 when she intercepted a pass, dribbled beyond Royals goalkeeper Mandy McLean, and slotted the ball into the open net in the 30th minute. She's also joint top scorer in the league with 7 goals.
Or Lifeline on 13 11 14.
Day of clean-up underway on the New South Wales mid-north coast, while tens of thousands remain isolated by floodwaters.
Our focus very much is now into the clean-up phase and the continued resupply. We've seen the roads now open into many communities.
a woman who they say drove at officers during a chaotic arrest in Melbourne. A doctor in Gaza loses 9 of her children in an Israeli strike on their family home. And Arsenal celebrate their first Women's Champions League soccer title in 18 years. Hello, welcome to ABC News. I'm Lorna Dunkley. Residents in flood-affected parts of New South Wales have started a weeks-long clean-up, supported by the SES and emergency teams from around Australia and New Zealand. Floodwaters are receding, but more than 32,000 people remain isolated. Authorities have now downgraded all emergency level warnings. That means all flood zones across the state are now no longer categorised as posing the most severe risk. While the SES is fully focused on damage assessments, they're also reminding people that the danger is not totally over. Reminding people
Welcome back. You're watching Daybreak here on France 24. Headlines this hour. Russia bombards the Ukrainian capital with missiles and drones for a second night in a row. At least 3 reported dead in the Kyiv region and 4 others in western Ukraine. It comes as the two sides continue their mass exchange of prisoners. We'll have more from our correspondent, Emmanuel Chest. 2 married doctors lose almost all of their children in an Israeli strike on their home in Khan Yunis. The family among the latest victims of Israel's expanded offensive in Gaza. The Israeli army says it is reviewing reports. Venezuelans vote this Sunday in their first major poll since last year's contested presidential election. Nicolas Maduro remained in power. The opposition is calling for a boycott, and one of their key leaders was arrested just days ahead of the vote.
Headline news this hour. Chinese Premier Li Qiang says China is willing to work with Indonesia to tackle risks and challenges with the international situation in turmoil and peaceful development under threat. Mr. Li is in Jakarta, the first stop of his Southeast Asia tour. ASEAN Chair Malaysia says Southeast Asian nations must stay united in the face of global trade disruptions due to US tariffs. Now, 6 of its 10 members are among the worst hit, with levies ranging from 32 to 49%. The meeting of foreign ministers comes ahead of a leader summit tomorrow, followed by talks with China and the Gulf states on Tuesday. And North Korea has detained 3 officials it says were responsible for the recent botched launch of a new warship. Leader Kim Jong-un called the incident a criminal act caused by absolute carelessness. And that's the latest from the CNN newsroom. Good afternoon, it's 12 p.m. in Singapore and Hong Kong, 9:30 in New Delhi and 11 o'clock in Jakarta. I'm Ilakya Silveraji. Let's have a look at the headlines. Chinese Premier Li Qiang says China is willing to work with Indonesia to tackle risks and challenges with the international situation in turmoil and peaceful development under threat. ASEAN Chair Malaysia calls for unity at a time of global economic uncertainty from US tariffs and to rights.
Thank you very much for giving time to Amir Shackle 5858. I am Amir Shackle. Have a good life. Bye-bye.